Haya, waruaku Orengo.
As the community of the Luos, to the point that it takes another Luo leader to sponsor youth to remove another leader from a function.
I walked there to Senator Jena and I asked him, these people came with you. Can you tell them to stop?
Orengo was not chased away, and that's the detail being deliberately ignored. What happened in Seme wasn't chaos, it was an attempt interruption. Orengo was not chased away, and that's the detail being deliberately ignored. What happened in Seme wasn't chaos, it was an attempted interruption. But here's what matters: the crowd didn't turn, the ground didn't shift, and the narrative didn't collapse. This came days after a massive Kisumu rally where Orengo was elevated as the people's ODM leader. So the timing tells you everything. This wasn't control, it was reaction. And in politics, when your opponents are reacting to you, you are already ahead. Seme didn't weaken Orengo, it confirmed that his rise is now impossible to ignore.
Orengo ama Oburu, party leader Marwa kuja. Nimetangazwa rasmi kama acting party leader ya ODM. Wangapi umekubali?
James Orengo was not chased away from Seme. What happened was a failed political ambush, and the people on the ground made that very clear. Days before the burial in Seme, Orengo and the Linda Mwananchi team had already shifted the political mood in Kisumu. A massive rally, a clear message, and a symbolic moment. Orengo being elevated by supporters as the people's ODM leader. That changed the equation. Then came the burial of Mzee Eliud Nyikalo Kaka. What unfolded there was not just mourning, it was a political test. Orengo arrived to a reception rarely seen. Crowds surging, red carpet rolled out, chants echoing across Udore Primary School.
Haya, waruaku Orengo.
And then disruption, heckling, tension, attempts to fracture the moment, but Orengo did not retreat under pressure. He exited on his own terms after making his presence and moved to catch his flight.
When somebody has a dissenting voice, it doesn't mean that he's supporting somebody like the one you keep on referring to. Constitution of Kenya gives us an occasion to vote after every 5 years. And so after every 5 years, everybody has a right to choose the leaders they want. From grassroots.
This is where the analysis goes wrong. The narrative being pushed is simple: chaos equals weakness, but that reading collapses under scrutiny. What looks like disruption is actually desperation, because the same crowds that welcomed Orengo in overwhelming numbers did not turn against him. It held. The noise has distracted from the real signal. The attempt to puncture his momentum came after his political stock had already risen in Kisumu. That timing matters. It suggests reaction, not control. And in politics, reaction is always a weaker position.
Do we have to have a large group of people? The large is okay, but there must be large that are peaceful. If they're large and they're following us, we must be able to say no and they stop.
Now look at the alignment. After the Kisumu rally, Orengo's position within ODM and within the broader Nyanza political space had clearly expanded. That created pressure, and Seme became the release point. What played out was a direct attempt by a rival faction within ODM to interrupt that rise, to deny Orengo a clean consolidation moment on home ground. The disruption wasn't random, it was targeted. But here is what failed. They did not take control of the the event. They did not flip the crowd. They did not dominate the narrative. Instead, what emerged from the pulpit and from leaders present was condemnation. The preacher spoke out. Dr. James Nyekal himself issued warnings. Ruth Odinga openly showed outrage. Even later, Oburu Odinga, as ODM party leadership, was forced to step in, calling for bridges, not walls. That's not the response of a side that has won ground. That's damage control.
When somebody has a dissenting voice, it doesn't mean that he's supporting somebody like the one you keep on referring to.
I walked there to Senator Jianda and I asked him, these people came with you. Can you tell them to stop? To stop.
That a whole governor in Nyanza can be removed and escorted out of the funeral that she should not be in a funeral of one of his colleagues who is an MP. And for why? Because he has a divergent view from those who are sitting there. What is this intolerance in the party of ODM? But what is the bigger picture? Why are we being divided? I'm not in a Linda Madainchi or Linda Wanini. I'm actually Linda Raila Amolo Odinga because this is a party he fought for. This was the only shamba Raila had. Most of the times Raila was actually not being given his right. He won elections here more than 3 times. But whenever he lost, he remained with ODM. He remained with the people. And I'm sure even this last one, he was so bitter because...
Meanwhile, Orengo maintained strategic composure, rejecting claims that he had been chased away, refusing to validate the disruption. He didn't need to argue the moment. The optics had already done the work. He is the truth many won't say openly. Orengo's political relevance in Nyanza is no longer in question. It is expanding and it is making other power centers uncomfortable. The Linda Mwananchi faction is no longer just a pressure group. It is evolving into a parallel influence structure within ODM, and that changes everything because once internal competition becomes visible, it stops being manageable behind closed doors. What happened in Seme exposed that tension, not created it, and the attempt to disrupt him did not diminish his standing. If anything, it amplified it, because in Kenyan politics, surviving a coordinated interruption without losing ground is not weakness, it's consolidation. Watch what comes next, not statements, movements. Expect more strategic appearances by Orengo across Nyanza, more subtle pushback from competing ODM factions, more moments where ground support is quietly tested. The next phase will not be loud, it will be calculated, because the real contest now is not about visibility, it's about control of political space ahead of 2027, and Seme has already shown that the battle lines are no longer hidden.
Haya, Waruakuru Orengo.
In Kenyan politics, power isn't proven by who interrupts you, but by whether they can replace you. Drop your comment. Newsroom, Maisha TV, Mesh Msimbi.